Nashville Network. Since its inception in 1983, TNN has each Sunday treated its 46 million homes to Sports Sunday, highlighted by the Diamond T Sports presentation of American Sports Cavalcade. This series has enabled the Nashville Network to present a wide diversity of motorsports and has been extremely successful in garnering every award that can be bestowed in the cable industry. That diversity of motorsports has taken place from coast to coast and border to border. During the next 60 minutes, allow Diamond T Sports and the Nashville Network to take you to such places as Road America and Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. To the southern United States in Atlanta Dragway and Atlanta, Georgia for NHRA Championship Drag Racing Competition. We'll take you to the West Coast, specifically Southern California for CMC Motocross action. Outlaws have been our host in Mesquite, Texas for a number of years, always for great sprint car action. '87 and '88 saw Diamond T Sports in the hometown of the Nashville Network, Nashville, Tennessee, for door-banging stock car action from the Stock Car Connection. The Northeast United States is home to Dover Downs International Speedway in Dover, Delaware. We were there in 1983 for the Big Rig 200. And the Northern United States is home to some of the finest in rodeo action. Just amazing. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Evans, and those scenes are just a sample of what we have put together for you from the archives of our award-winning American Sports Cavalcade. From 6 spectacular seasons, we'll show you what can happen when a professional driver, a rider, or maybe just an average guy takes it, well, a bit further than physics allows. Suddenly he or she finds themselves over the edge. How they handle the resulting spins, crashes, and fires is what separates the merely good from the great. Stick around. The one thing that all the people you are about to meet have in common is that they all went over the edge and they walked away. Our first stop is Dover, Delaware, at Dover Downs International Speedway for the running of the NASCAR North 200 in 1983. Called the Monster Mile by those who know, Dover Downs is notorious for fighting the unsuspecting. Guys like number 20, Rick Newsom. J.R. Charbonneau got himself off track on the back straight and learned firsthand how it got the nickname. I talked to him.
Okay, well, they call this the Monster Mile. What do you think after running it now? Well, I'll tell you, it is Monster Mile. It's a whole lot of fun.
Well, JR, if you can call spinning a race car a whole lot of fun, then let's hope that number 40, Dick May, was having a big time. Ditto for car number 75, Joe Ruttman, and number 2, Tim Richmond. Although it got truly scary when the two cars tangled in traffic. In replay, we can see that number 76, Joe Ruttman, in the blue and white car got it sideways. And number 2, Tim Richmond, in the blue and yellow car had nowhere to go. First, Richmond T-bones Ruttman. Then Ruttman, now going backwards, runs into Richmond. After the smoke and part settled, I spoke to Joe Ruttman.
It looks kind of grim at this point. I would think they were kind of trouble.
The understatement of that day. Then it was time for the NASCAR big boys to tackle the Monster Mile. Here's how Brock and I called it. We've got trouble. There's a car losing it, Brock.
Oh, yeah, Harry Camp. Couple of 360s, and he nails Ricky Rudd, trying to get by him on the outside. Rudd up against the outside retaining wall, holding the car up against the wall. Beautiful piece of work by Rudd. Spiked the brakes, held the car up there, rather than let it drift down into traffic. That was a critical move by Rudd and a beautiful piece of driving.
The replay shows just how treacherous the situation got when Gant's car, doing better than 150 miles per hour, got off of the racing surface. It literally became an unguided missile whose movements Ricky Rudd couldn't predict. After the incident, Ricky Rudd explained what happened.
This car just turned around at a 180, was going backwards down through the infield, shot back up on the racetrack right in front of me. I thought I had missed him, and it just caught the rear end of my car and sent us into the wall.
Then it got scary on the Monster Mile. Well, talk about your Chargers. Bobby Dragon, number 71, has just unlapped himself. He has passed Dave Dion. The number 71 car is now on the same. Bobby Dragon in trouble. He center punches the wall. The car disintegrates in the front half.
Bad crash. Had to hit that thing at 140, 150 miles an hour, and I don't care how strong these cars are. I'm worried about Bobby Dragon. That was a bad hit.
In the space of a split second, Bobby Dragon was in a situation that every stock car driver dreads. He was heading into a wall with no time to react. Whether he got into some oil or a tire blew, it didn't matter. Bobby Dragon was in big trouble. Luckily, all of the safety equipment performed as it should. After such an unbelievable impact, Bobby Dragon was out of the car. He walked away. Dover International played host to Over the Road Truckers in 1984, and we were there for the Big Rig 200. It was in a qualifying heat that this frightening incident happened to driver E.J. Utley. The replay shows us exactly what happened. E.J. Utley is the third truck in your picture. Now notice that the second truck spiked the brakes hard, causing Utley to do the same. But the back end came around, and E.J. Utley knew immediately that he was in big trouble at over 100 miles per hour. In the second angle, we can see that E.J. was just beginning to accelerate off of the corner when he noticed the smoke off the wheels of the truck in front of him, and he was caught in a position of having to overcorrect. Next, the truck began a slow spin on its way to coming around full circle. E.J. had to be hoping that nobody was close enough to T-bone him as he struggled for control. Then, just before the front end was pointing straight down the track, E.J. applies power to the rear wheels and set himself up for a very hard hit into the wall. What caused the accident, E.J.?
Well, starting all those slow trucks up in front is the main thing, and when they come around, instead of moving down, they all move right up in the racing lane, and just wasn't no place to go.
You don't want to lead like the big guys.
Right.
But you're okay, and that's fortunate, because you took a pretty good shot against the wall.
E.J. and crew worked all night to repair the damage, especially to the steering gear and front axle on the big yellow rig. The next day, E.J. was able to start the race, but was soon in and out of the pits with one minor problem after another. Finally, a broken oil hose, which did not fit correctly after the mishap, and for which there was no replacement, put E.J. Utley out for the day. Next, we head to the Midwest in Knoxville, Iowa, home of the single biggest World of Outlaws sprint car race held each year. And 1987 was no disappointment. The action started as 23M Rocky Hodges and 32U Dave Fitzgerald came together in the front straight, sending Rocky Hodges into the muddy infield and out of contention to win that heat. Now, that was obviously pretty minor stuff. Nothing on the cars was bent badly. But here's how Brock Yates and I called an incident that was a little more serious. We've got problems in turn one. Leland McSpadden Brock is tangled with 31 White Roll. And here is Bobby Allen slamming into Randy Smith, and he is upside down right in the middle of the racetrack. The red flag is out. This heat has been stopped for obvious reasons. Bobby Allen appears to be okay.
One of the great veterans of the World of Outlaws, a former go-kart champion, Bobby Allen, out of the car okay.
As you may have noticed, that huge wing on top of the race car serves another purpose besides downforce retraction. It is also a cushion in a rollover situation. Bobby Allen in the 1A car, tumbling through your picture, walked away from this one because the wing helped cushion the roll. 1988 was a year of even more incredible incidents in Knoxville. Brock and I called it.
up against the fence and upside down. A big crash. Al Schmidt and Billy Ballauer in turn number 1. It appears as if the drivers are all right. Once again, a really hard spill as the field headed down into turn number 1.
As we take another look at this crack-up, it seems that both drivers were going for an outside line. And the 25, Al Schmidt, who was in front, scrubbed the fence, and Billy Billhauer hit him from behind, starting both cars tumbling toward the middle of the track. Both men walked away. The wings once again helped cushion most of the impact. Then, in all my experience of covering sprint cars, this next incident is the most spectacular I have ever seen. Oh, in turn number 1, they're in the fence for the multi-car incident. In turn number 1, this race will be stopped immediately.
We've got a car outside the track, Steve. One went right through the fence. It looks like Marlon Jones in the number 9. That race car spilled upside down as Danny Toman's 2V. He is still in that automobile. Now you hear the applause from this giant crowd. That means that Marlon Jones is out of his race car. John Cernette is out of the car. Dave Blaney is apparently all right, but right now the concern is directed at Danny Toman in that automobile. There's one of the emergency workers trying to get him unhooked. Let's hope he's all right. These roll cages are very stout, but they're never quite stout enough. So concern here spreading through this giant audience. There is Marlon Jones, number 9. Believe it or not, he walked out of that race car. Completely out of the park, Steve, but note, roll cage intact, and that big wing apparently helped to cushion the automobile. But it's going to be some time before they get that fence repaired. There he is! Danny Toman out of the race car. He, too, is all right. So we got 4 cars totally destroyed, but thankfully 4 drivers are all right.
And now it's time to take another look at this one, Brock. One of the most spectacular accidents that we have ever seen in our 6-year coverage of World of Outlaw Racing. I don't have to tell you that it all happened right here in turn number 1.
An incredible, almost like a train wreck, as these cars literally disintegrate into that fence outside turn number 1. Unbelievable that these drivers were apparently uninjured as we watch this wreckage begin to be strewn all over the racetrack here at Knoxville. Okay, let's take another look as they come down the front straightaway toward the green flag. All right, watch the white number 2. That's Marlon Jones in the number 9 cutting in front of him. Then Jones slides up against the 14. That's a John Cernette, which causes him to flip. Danny Toman in the 2V rolls. Marlon Jones goes through the fence. Dave Blaney in the 48 car goes through the wreckage, picking up shrapnel. His car is badly damaged, but does not roll. The only one of the 4 not to get upside down.
Just run down exactly what happened to you, Dave.
Well, I kind of was trailing along the outside fence there on the start, and looked like a couple guys got tangled up in the middle of the racetrack, and they just come skating out to the outside and all got in the fence.
You tore up the front end, but do you think you can get it fixed?
Yeah, it looks like it right now. I got about 30 guys working on it. Yeah, I think we'll get it fixed.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Whew. It's time to catch our collective breath as we head up to Connecticut in Lime Rock Park for IMSA road racing action. In 1984, TNN and Diamond B were there to cover the GT classes. In road racing, the race goes on rain or shine, but rain made it very tough on number 43, Diego Montoya, in his beautiful black BMW M1. Some bodywork was damaged, but it wasn't long before he was back out. The same corner, moments later, saw Lou Price in the Nissan sawing the wheel, trying to keep himself from the embarrassment of landing in the ditch. Oh, well, Lou, maybe next time. Well, anger as opposed to embarrassment would be an appropriate word to describe the frame of mind of number 47, Walt Boren, as he tried to pass a lap car driven by Billy Hagan. Boren took a hard shot into the guardrail, virtually destroying the front-end bodywork and suspension of his Corvette. To add insult to injury, the 47 car was leading the race at the time of that incident. I talked to Walt shortly after he limped the car back to the pits.
Visibility is really the problem in the rain, and unfortunately I got tangled up with a back marker that I was lapping for the 2nd time and didn't just pretend I wasn't there, shut the door on me and put me in the guardrail. You know, the people just...
A little more lane respect is what you say.
Well, I mean, all I want is racing room. Here he is in the middle of the track without a clue of what's going on, and I was was being very cautious because after Montoya spun and crashed, he ended up coming back out right in front of me, and I didn't want to get tangled up with him, and yet I had to stay ahead of Mandeville. So I was so cautious for the whole race, and then to have this happen by some idiot right at the end, really, it bothers me. It's just a big disappointment. I came in, we were able to get one more lap, and I think we salvaged the 4th place, but that...
Somehow I don't think Higgins got a Christmas card from Boren that year. In the GTP ranks, the rain was no kinder to the drivers of the prototypes than it was to the GTO cars, as demonstrated here by Bill Woodington of the 57 March Chevrolet. A little too much power coming out of the turn, then the front wheels exit the track, and there was nothing to do but go for a motorized hike into the woods. Ugh, that hurts. As he exited the car, he must have been thinking it would be impossible to get that car back out on the track with that kind of serious damage. But in no time, the 57 was back on the racetrack. 1986, we were back to Lime Rock to cover the Sports Car Club of America's Trans Am race. Number 28 was off of the track first, the victim of what he called a nerf from behind by the number 2 car of Chris Neifeld. Although it wasn't a payback, it was just as good as Neifeld himself spun a few laps later. The track at Lime Rock equalized things in its own way. Then it was time for the Pete Halsmer, Wally Dallenbach Jr. story. Here's how Brock and I called it.
The tight stuff like right here. Dallenbach has got a chance. Dallenbach tries him outside. No, they touch their block. Halsmer off the racetrack.
Oh, yes, and right across the racetrack. This is in the West Bend. Halsmer comes to a stop, and now the leader is Wally Dallenbach Jr. He muscled his way through that melee, almost collected Halsmer as he came back across the track.
Wally Dallenbach Jr. had this to say about that.
You know, I was faster than he was, and he was just getting wide, and we came up over the hill, and I was on his left, and we made contact, and we both started going side to side, but I seem to say that he spun. He sure got up awfully fast.
Well, you'd probably catch up fast, too, if somebody had nudged you off the track. And look how close Dallenbach came to T-boning Halsmer. Both men were lucky in this instance. Well, Wally Dallenbach went out not long after that shot with mechanical problems, but things did not go much better for Halsmer. Then it went from bad to worse for Pete Halsmer. As he was coming up to pass number 28, Jim Miller, in turn 1, Pete rear-ended him with a force that sent them reeling into the safety tire wall and sent turn workers scattering. In replay, we see that Miller had moved to the outside as far as he could, but Halsmer was moving too fast to get past on the inside and into the turn. Pete Halsmer explained to Brock exactly what happened.
We lost the front brakes for some reason early on, and caused me to spin a couple of times because I couldn't get it slowed down for that first turn, and finally I was trying to learn how to drive the thing without front brakes, and it was going pretty good, and then finally somebody stopped sooner than I expected him to in front of me and just nailed him. It was Jim Miller, he and I both went off the fence side, but he's okay nonetheless.
Got pretty hairy out there at the beginning. You and Wally were going at it.
Yeah, well, it tends to get that way.
Yeah.
Indeed it does, Pete. 1985 was the first year that the Nashville Network brought you these pictures from the beautiful Finger Lakes region in upstate New York, home of Watkins Glen International Raceway, one of the premier road courses in all of the United States. It was here in 1985 that this man, Bob Tullius, owner of the Jaguar racing team, had a power meeting with the guardrail on the first lap of the race that left his team scrambling to get the beautiful GT prototype back into action. As he limped the car into the pits on 3 wheels, the prognosis did not look good.
The race car, how badly damaged was it?
I don't think it's badly damaged at all. We measure the damage primarily whether it's suspension or tub. If it's a tub, it's serious. If it's suspension, we can throw that away and put it on. We don't think the tub's hurt, so we think it's relatively minor damage.
And indeed, the pit crew did get the Jaguar back together, putting on a whole new right front suspension. But then moments later, with Doc Bundy now behind the wheel, this happened. Down in that sweeping left-hander on the back part of the course, Bundy planted the car hard into the tire wall. Needless to say, car 44 had had enough for one day. Now this was Gary Shaw driving the number 12 car in the IMSA Firehawk race that same weekend at Watkins Glen. In turn 1, Gary came in way too hot, got the car totally off the pavement, and made a beautiful rear entry pirouette into the tire wall. That tire wall saved what would have been massive damage to the race car, and Gary was uninjured in the mishap, except maybe for a little bit of pride. Number 33, Richard Messier, also had a rude introduction to the tire wall, but this time it was from the front. I called the replay. He exits turn 7 tail first, trying to control the slide. Can't do that. Suddenly looks up and goes, oh, no. Right up over the rail. Let's hope that's not one of the cars financed down at the bank, or that he's in the good hands of some insurance company. In 1985, T&N and Dynasty returned for the New York Kodak 500, only to see number 68 Darren Brasfield go out with an oil leak. Later, number 63 John Mafuccio was shown no respect by this adversary and is simply nudged out of the way. But it's the racetrack itself that showed Sarl Vandemer no respect in his Corvette GTP. It sent him spinning wildly out of that right-hand turn. Sarl, I counted about 3 360s. How many from your standpoint?
I think I stopped counting after about 4. There was some wall there that on the outside, and I went a bit wide and just touched it. And that sent me spinning.
Talk about tires that have been flat spotted. The tires on Vandemerva's car must have come off the machine in the shape of cubes after this little mishap. Also in 1985, we were again in upstate New York, this time in Syracuse at the New York State Fairgrounds for the Eastern Modifieds. Known as the Moody Mile, this track is longer and faster than most drivers are used to. Just ask Fritz Enright in the red number 6 car. Now watching this replay, as C.D. Colville in the number 61 car was rammed from behind, just enough to throw his car into a hard right turn and into the outside wall. Multi-car incidents in turn 4 turned out to be the rule rather than the exception here in Syracuse, and C.D. Colville was but one of the victims of the Moody Mile. Next, Brock and I called yet another incident in turn 4. Here we go with yet another restart of the National Auto 320 for modified cars.
Well, he gets a little better start this time. Oh, trouble right away.
A chain reaction right in the middle of that. 2, 4, 5, 6 race cars involved, and they never got to the start-finish line on the restart. Just incredible. These guys are out for blood today. And as I look back at that race, the carnage was just beginning. Here were a couple of the cars involved in that crash, including the J17 car of Jeff Hutzler. Brock talked to him after the wreck.
What happened exactly? Well, everybody bottled up on the start, and one guy got sideways, and the guy outside of me went over the right front wheel and bent it. Well, I went to the wall.
That turn 4 seems to be a lot of trouble today. We've had a lot of yellows in the initial stages of the race. Anything going on? Is it just greasy, or is it just a place that's always trouble here at Syracuse?
No, what I think, everybody gets a little rammy on the starts. They think they get a spot and end up rubbing wheels, getting out of shape, and accidents happen.
Well, you heard Jeff mention that wheel contact is a cause leading to many crashes. This is just one of the hazards of modifieds or sprint cars or any open wheel cars for that matter. If the wheels of 2 cars come into contact, both cars are usually headed for disaster. For this reason, and just plain pushing too hard on the start, this scary incident developed. It was also in turn 4 and also at the start of the race. We got big problems in turn 4. That is the car against the wall of John Biroc. Sammy Swindell has hit him, car number 11, who led this race earlier on. And oh! Buzzy Ruderman has just rammed the parked car of Sammy Swindell. An awful collision in turn 4.
Well, Sammy Swindell was just sitting there parked, and the veteran Buzzy Ruderman came off turn 4, building up speed. We're going to have a yellow here. We've got a bad crash. The racetrack is almost fully blocked. Sammy Swindell climbing out of his race car. Biroc and Ruderman still inside their cars. Let's take another look at what happened here. Coming off turn 4, we see Biroc sliding toward the outside wall. There is Sammy Swindell, who follows him up against the fence, squeezes him in there, bounces tears off Pieroch's car and comes to a halt. A whole bunch of other cars seem to get by in pretty good shape, and then Buzzy Rudham and Steve Evans comes wide off turn 4 and tags the stopped car of Sammy Swindell. An awful shot. I'd say he probably hit it at almost 100 miles an hour.
And I'm sure that came as a complete surprise to Sammy Swindell. I would guess that Swindell was just about ready to unbuckle, Brock. Obviously, he didn't, or he wouldn't have walked away from that car. Once again, good safety equipment prevents what could otherwise have been a racing disaster. Our focus now shifts due west to one of the prettiest parts of the U.S., the city of Billings, Montana. Billings is Montana's largest city and home of the Wrangler Roundup Pro Rodeo. Now, riding one of the specially bred animals found in Pro Rodeo is widely known as a daunting task. But riding one and looking graceful at the same time, now that is a real challenge. Bull rider Bob Erickson was not quite up to it as the bull named L12 slapped him up against the fence and did his best to trample old Bob. Rider Terry Langfeld got on the wrong side of LT7 and ouch. Now, Marty Steinert on the bull named 777 was a little more graceful during the actual ride, but the dismount? Anybody got a pillow for the ride home? Next was Bill Fitzhugh on Rusty, and Rusty was going to have none of it.
I got thrown off, and that's all there is to it. You know, there's nothing you can do about it.
Chuck Simonson had a very respectable ride and decided to show us the posterior first dismount. Now, rodeo is mostly a lot of good, clean fun, but sometimes everything can go wrong.
Okay, boys, he says. Then let him loose. Bart Bird is in trouble already. Off to the side of that bull, his hand hung up. Finally, in comes loose. Oh, and the bull gets rodeo clown Wick Path and just slings him into the air, Brock. Indeed he did. Unbelievable what that bull, just a snap of his neck.
Just a snap of his neck could easily have been disaster. As we look again, Bart Bird was in trouble from the very start. It looked like the bull named L1 gently rolled Bart off of his back, causing Bart's hand to get hung up in the rope. Seeing the trouble, rodeo clown Wick Pat came in to assist by diverting the bull's attention away from the rider. And divert he did. In the tangle of legs, L1 saw his opportunity and took it. He caught Wick Pat right between the horns and snapped him skyward, seemingly without effort, as Bart Bird scrambled away as if his life depended on it. From another angle, you can see that the bull came around on Wick Pat faster than Wick anticipated, and had both men in his crosshairs almost immediately. Running into each other and stumbling only ensured that old L1 would prevail. Wick Pat was surely hurting after that flight, but it could have been a lot worse. Rider Bart Bird had this to say afterwards.
Yeah, well, I thought he was going to come around to the left right around the gate. I've seen him before, but he just kind of rolled up in to the left and rolled me into my hand and then ducked out and just clicked my heels.
Well, Wick Path, the clown out there, was always thinking more about you than he was himself. He took a pretty good shot, too.
Did a hell of a job, they all do.
We returned to Billings in 1985, and not much had changed. Here, Jim Meeks on Moon River had a good ride and ably demonstrated that the posterior first dismount had not gone out of style. And Don Walker demonstrated a flying reverse half gainer that landed him right on his head. Now in a bull named Pat, Billy Zurcher figures he can outdo Don Walker easy. Oh, it's close. I'll call it a tie. Barrel racer Tana Simonson experienced one of the most frightening things that can happen in this event. Having the horse fall on top of you.
You got your, did your horse get your foot or did you hit it on the barrel?
No, when she fell, I had my toe pointed out and she crammed my toe in the ground and that hurt a little bit.
Have you fallen recently?
Yeah, I did. The last rodeo I went up to Regina. It was an indoor rodeo too, and she fell with me up there too.
I'd find a more stable horse. Wayne Meitzel atop Heston wound up on the wrong side of those big horns in this replay. Watch as Meitzel came off the bull's head swinging around and clipping the back of his head.
Are you okay? Oh yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, when you just catch you on the back of his scalp? Yeah, hit me on the ball of the head there and split it open a little bit. Ain't too bad. Do you have any stitches in it, or are you just no? It's not. It's just a short cut. It's not real long. It bleeds a lot, so.
One of the scariest and most dangerous situations, according to rodeo riders, is to get yourself hung up in the rope hold as you're trying to get off the animal. Philip Fournier found himself in that situation when he rode 2 grand in Billings. He played it smart, though. He got back up on the horse, released himself, and dismounted unhurt. Rock clock to it.
That was a beautiful piece of work. That's the worst time for a cowboy, isn't it, when you can't get loose?
It's Shannon bareback riding, yes. Real bad. They don't look for him.
On our many trips to the West Coast, TNN and Diamond P have been proud to bring you racing coverage from Riverside International Raceway with its famous S's. Tricky turns, long straightaways, and that dangerous sweeping right-hander known as turn 9. In 1984 IMSA competition, the